This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London.
It's not going to be a systematic theological dissertation, but it follows an intuition about the work of two writers that I love very much. And they are Mary Oliver and Flannery O'Connor. In keeping with the teaching of St Ignatius, this paper addresses the intuition for transcendency in reality of the everyday by examining the work of two women writers, the contemporary American poet Mary Oliver and the Southern writer of short story and novels, Flannery O'Connor, who died 50 years ago this year. In the work of both of these writers, we can find the very kernel of the teaching of St Ignatius, not to be limited by the greatest and yet to be contained in the tiniest. This is the divine. In moments where the divine is contained, or we could say compressed, and then revealed in reality of every day, in the most unexpected, prosaic circumstances of daily life, or in the humble beauty of the natural world. Mary Oliver and Flannery O'Connor's work expresses what can be defined as a sacramental vision, a vision able to contemplate the glory of the universe, the presence of the living God, even in something small, in something tiny, daily, unpretentious, humble. This can perhaps be summarized as an artistic staring at reality, exemplified by William Blake's verses: to see a world in a grain of sand, and an heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Therefore, even a grain of sand can deliver an epiphany, an intuition of the actual presence of the Creator, a slight and unexpected but decisive insight, which leads the reader to discernment. Born in Ohio in 1935, Mary Oliver is one of the most widely read and loved poets in the United States. Winner of the Pulitzer Prize in 1984, she is the author of a clear and direct kind of poetry that draws inspiration from the world of nature, which she observed during long daily walks in the wood of Provincetown, Massachusetts, where she currently lives. Her verses, in fact, stem from an attitude of extraordinary attentiveness to the world, a preliminary and essential posture repeatedly emphasized within her composition. As in the work of Henry David Thoreau, Walt Whitman, Robert Frost, the natural world is the kernel of her verses. Mary Oliver poetry, though far from any form of institutionalized religion, is a deeply spiritual poetry, able to transmit, in analogy with the teaching of St Ignatius, the echo of the beginning, the call of creation, and the exhortation of an ongoing discernment. Her poetry gives voice to a soul attuned through contact with nature to the wavelength of transcendence. The poem, Why Awake Early, immediately introduces what is the defining characteristic of Mary Oliver poetry, the celebration of the world. A world where its natural elements, in this case the sun, are represented as great vital powers, as a create energy, that it is at work in continuous renewal, as a relentless and joyful process of creation in progress, akin to the Dott of Teilhard de Chardin. For such a world, it's worthy to get up early, and the poet's greeting, "Hello, sun on my face," springs forth with delight and gratitude. Every morning the world is created is the opening line of morning poem, the verses of which celebrates the morning, the sun in their awakening. The poem, while mirroring the glory of creation, depicts a reality charged with the grandeur of God. To use the words of a famous poem, the Jesuit Mary Hopkins, a poet read and loved by Mary Oliver. In the poem entitled "This World," ants, peonies, spider webs, the music created by the branches of the trees are all part of a natural living reality that exists in a state of perfect happiness and harmony, which the poet is called to acknowledge, admire, and celebrate. A sort of parallel universe with its own laws and its own language, which everyone could hear, but only if he or she rediscovers within himself, within herself, that innate ability of awe and wonder encouraged by Ignatius. In Mary Oliver's poetry, a kind, careful, thoughtful provision is claimed to be an essential and existential posture from which to listen to the voice of the words, of the word, to learn from it, and to come back to join it. A disposition to listen well, exemplified in Mockingbirds, where the song of a pair of mockingbirds brings the poet's mind the image of an old couple who, in ancient Greece, had opened the door of their home without hesitation to two strangers, who later were found to be gods. Writes Mary Oliver. It's my favorite story, how the old couple had almost nothing to give, but their willingness to be attentive. But for this alone, the gods loved them and blessed them. The attitude of the couple is of attentiveness, an attitude of openness. The act of listening and looking involves kindness, not as a formal courtesy, but as a tension of the heart towards the other, capable of recognizing a link between all creatures and the presence of the sacred in the world. Because of its exaltation of perceivable sensations, of the direct experience of reality, Mary Oliver's poetry presents analogies with the spiritual imagination described in the spiritual exercises, where the retreatment is called to apply his perception to the mystery which he is contemplating. As I have already said, it is the attention, focus on a world outside the self, the necessary attitude for the human being to renew his sense of belonging to the family of things, as found in the splendid final lines of the poem Wild Geese, without a doubt the most famous of Mary Oliver verses. Mary Oliver's poetry, with its attentiveness to the divine in the tiniest of things, urge us, therefore, to accept with joy one's existence in the world, to give our unconditioned consent to a life intended as a wonderful opportunity. A poetry that, considering the value of the gift received, unfolds itself as a song of praise, a celebration of what is humble, small, ordinary, that reveals, as does the teaching of St Ignatius, participation to a greater reality full of meaning. Rather than in nature, as with Mary Oliver, in Flannery O'Connor's fiction it's possible to encounter an embodied transcendence, an incarnation of the divine, discovered in the most unexpected, ordinary and small fragments of reality. Born in 1925 in Savannah, Georgia, from parents of Irish descent, Flannery O'Connor died at the age of 39 from lupus erythematosus, a severe impairment of the immune system inherited from her father, which killed her in the early hours of August 3, 1964, leaving behind a master of peacocks and a legacy of a great literary talent. Her 27 short stories and 2 novels yielded in her life 2 honorary doctorates, and she won the Coerceri Award 3 times. In 1988, her work was included in the prestigious Library of America, an honor hitherto reserved among her contemporaries only to William Faulkner. In 1979, John Huston made a film out of her debut novel, Wise Blood. Unlike Mary Oliver, Flannery O'Connor writes from a Christian Orthodox point of view. She had the Summa Theologiae by Thomas Aquinas on her nightstand, and she knew the Yiddish writings very well. Her narrative, though profoundly Catholic, does not make for easy reading because of its realistic style, describing grotesque and violent acts in a swarm of symbols and references. Yet, her stories exert a strong appeal to the reader who, although bewildered, find himself attracted to a confrontation against his will with the crucial issues of existence. It is in such an extreme territory that O'Connor's characters move as bizarre but inflexible God-seekers. They are so stubbornly close to themselves until a violent and unexpected event occurs to unlock their beliefs and closures. To reach this opening will cost them blood and tears, but this is the only possible way to achieve an authentic closeness to the mystery. Flannery O'Connor refers to a vision centered on the Christian mystery par excellence, that is the Incarnation. The scandal of which her fiction has been accused occurred when a concrete and realistic style presents in flesh and blood an inscrutable truth of faith, usually addressed by concept or devotion. It is here, in such moments, that we can find the Ignatian divine contained in the tiniest things. Flannery O'Connor fiction could be interpreted as a call, an appeal, a militant narrative, which urge the reader to recognize Christ in the disconcerting guise of a turkey, as in the short story entitled The Turkey, or in a guise of a thief of artificial legs, as in Good Country People, or in a guise of a serial killer, as in Good Men Is Hard to Find. The bigoted or nihilistics are destined not to understand or find her stories scandalous because they are unable to grasp the proliferation of Christological figures concretely embodied in her narrative. As for Ignatius, Flannery's first stage in perceiving the mystery is through perception. Her narrative, for its ability to bring meaning to reality, is the best medium to represent the mystery contained in the word. The writing becomes the stage in which the author depicts the perennial conflict between good and evil. But in her fiction, where the good and evil are placed, is not easy identifiable at first reading. The mass devote of the old ladies is revealed to profess an hypocritical religiosity, while the worst of criminals can possess a closer proximity with the Word of God, as in her narrative masterpiece, A Good Man Is Hard to Find. In O'Connor's work, the result of the spiritual embodied in reality is puzzling, because the divine shows himself unexpected and violent, shattering balance and beliefs, and sometimes even breaking bones. It is just this that happens to Parker, the protagonist of one of the most beautiful stories of the American writer, entitled Parker's Back, where the encounter with Christ takes place through the fulminant contact with the eyes of a Byzantine Christ icon, which Parker tattooed on his back to win over his bigoted wife. This is why, in all of Flannery O'Connor's narrative, which give voice to a deep bond between the power of the word and the power of the image, we can find Ignatian teaching to see with the side of imagination. As we have seen, the work of these two writers represent in very different ways Ignatian's divine contained in the tiniest. And both Mary Oliver and Flannery O'Connor encourage us to see the presence of the living God in reality that we cross every day. And both invite us to think about the deepest meaning of our life. Both help us to discern the truth about our freedom. Both, with different degrees of knowledge and intentionality, give voice through their work to Ignatian spirituality. Thank you.